The derelict vessel floated within the asteroid's hollow core like a tomb suspended in stone. Scanners traced its outline, an ancient warship of unmistakably human design, scarred and ruptured, but still stubbornly clinging to structure. Centuries of silence had not erased the aura of conflict etched into its hull. Alien floodlights washed across the fractured plating as Dr. Varen leaned closer to the viewport, his elongated fingers tightening around the edge of the console. He had studied ruins across half the spiral arm, yet none had unsettled him quite like this forgotten relic. "Stasis readings," he murmured, voice low, almost reverent. The monitor showed a pulsing beacon buried deep within the ship's innards. Faint, irregular, but undeniably alive. Something endured. Behind him, Kelther shifted, his heavy carapace scraping against the chamber wall. His eyes glowed with excitement, the scholar within him unable to contain himself. A human survivor. Imagine what the archives will say when we present this. Entire species catalogued as extinct, and we, by fortune and precision, have uncovered the last of them. Xyrek, stationed near the hatch, did not share the enthusiasm. His massive frame blocked half the light, his ridged features locked in a scowl. "Fortune," he said, disdain cutting through the sterile air. "You call it fortune to disturb a tomb? There are reasons ships like this are buried in stone. Reasons we would be wise to respect." Varen ignored the warning, his mind already dissecting possibilities. Their biology was primitive but stubborn. To survive cryostasis this long defies probability. What resilience, what secrets might be mapped in their cells? We could learn how a species, so frail, once defied empires. "Frailty is not glory," Xyrek snapped. His clawed hand tapped the holster at his hip. "Nor is a corpse worth the risk of awakening." Kelther chittered softly, the sound carrying amusement. "You cling to superstition. Humans were relics before your line ever crawled from mud. This survivor is no god, no demon. He is history, and history belongs to scholars, not guards." The argument died as the outer hull groaned beneath their cutting beams. Dust plumed into the vacuum like ash disturbed from a grave. A passage opened, revealing corridors warped and silent, strewn with fragments of steel and shadow. Every step echoed. Every panel they touched hummed faintly, as if reluctant to yield. The stasis chamber lay deeper than expected, sealed behind bulkheads welded from within. That detail unsettled Xyrek more than he admitted, his unease growing with each layer forced open. "They did not wish intruders to enter," he muttered. "No, this was containment." Kelther scoffed. "Containment? Of what? A frail human soldier? Their empire burned 2 ash ages ago." Yet his voice faltered, ever so slightly, when the final barrier hissed open to reveal the chamber. A single pod dominated the room. Frost filmed the glass, the faint glow of life monitors pulsing in patient rhythm. The figure within was unmistakably human, broad shoulders armored in dull plating, face obscured by frost but features taut, disciplined. Scars ran like maps across skin pale with stasis. Varen approached with the reverence of a priest before an altar. "Remarkable. The systems are still active, maintaining him all this time. See the redundancies in the power conduits. Human engineering, crude but effective." His hands fluttered over controls, recalibrating, coaxing ancient machinery back into readiness. Kelther pressed closer, pressing his recording lens to the glass. "Imagine the chronicles. The last voice of a dead race, preserved for us alone. The archives will etch our names beside his." Xyrek's voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Seal it again. You toy with forces your parchment cannot hold. There is intent here. No one locks away a soldier for kindness." But Varen did not hear. His mind was fire and hunger, his thoughts only of discovery. Life defies silence. We are healers, not grave keepers. To abandon this survivor is to abandon knowledge itself. The chamber filled with sound, the steady escalation of hissing vents, power surging through coils, frost melting in rivulets down the pod's surface. Monitors spiked, alarms warbled. the heartbeat within accelerating toward waking rhythm. Kelther leaned in, breath quick. History stirs. Zyric's hand tightened on his weapon. So does danger. The final locks disengaged. With a sharp exhalation, the pods split open. Steam billowed like breath from a furnace, rolling across the floor. The figure within stirred, armor clinking softly as he shifted. A hand gripped the pod's rim with sudden strength, frost fracturing beneath his fingers. Slowly, he lifted himself free, breath ragged but eyes burning with unbroken clarity. The aliens expected frailty. They expected confusion, collapse. Instead, the soldier stood tall, scarred face lifting toward them, gaze sharp enough to carve through silence. He scanned each of them in turn, scientist, historian, guard, as though weighing threat and purpose in an instant. When he spoke, his voice was gravel over steel, a language archaic yet intelligible through translation matrices. Where is the war? The chamber froze. Varen's hands trembled. Kelther's recording lens quivered. Only Zyric did not flinch, though his scowl deepened into something closer to dread. The human's question lingered in the air like a shadow, heavy, unyielding. And in that moment, each of them understood. This was no fragile relic of a fallen race. This was a soldier who had never stopped fighting, a blade preserved not for memory, but for a purpose still unknown. The silence broke under the rhythmic sound of his breathing, steady and controlled. Varen forced a smile, though his throat felt dry. "You are safe," he began, voice trembling at the edges. "The war is long past." The soldier's eyes narrowed, unreadable. His lips curved into something that was not relief, not grief. Something harder, something colder. The chamber's lights flickered as though echoing the unspoken tension, and in the stillness that followed, one truth became clear to them all. Reviving him had not been discovery. It had been release. The man's presence filled the chamber with an oppressive gravity. He moved with deliberate control, every gesture betraying discipline ingrained through a lifetime of war. Steam coiled around him like smoke rising from a battlefield, and his eyes, cold and unwavering, seemed to pierce the very walls. Dr. Varen, despite the tremor in his hands, stepped forward with the eagerness of a child confronting a legend. "Do you understand me?" he asked, activating the translation band around his throat. The soldier tilted his head slightly, processing the alien speech. His gaze swept across Varen, then Kelther, and finally lingered on Zyric, who stood taut and ready with one hand brushing the grip of his weapon. After a tense silence, the man answered in a voice sharp as broken glass. "Yes." Kelther's recording lens whirred, capturing every syllable, every twitch of muscle. "Astounding," he whispered. "Intact cognition after centuries in stasis. The synaptic resilience alone." "Quiet," Zyric growled, eyes locked on the soldier. He had spent years as sentinel to fragile scientists, but never had his instincts screamed as loudly as they did now. Something in this human's bearing was wrong, an intensity that defied the centuries separating him from his age of war. Varen tried to steady his voice. "You are aboard a derelict vessel discovered within an asteroid field. The war you speak of, it has ended long ago. Humanity no longer fights. In truth, humanity no longer lives." For the first time, emotion crossed the soldier's face, though it was not grief. His jaw tightened, his shoulders stiffened, and his eyes grew distant, as though calculating rather than mourning. "Extinct," he muttered, tasting the word like poison. Then he gave a short, humorless laugh. "Extinction doesn't happen to soldiers. Only to civilizations that forgot them." Kelther leaned forward, eager to probe the depths of this revelation. "You are the last of your kind. Imagine your memories, your training, your very body may preserve truths that no archive possesses. Tell us your name, soldier, so history may know you." The man's eyes snapped to Kelther, and for a heartbeat the historian faltered beneath that gaze. Finally, the soldier spoke. "Captain Marcus Hale, Terran Supremacy Infantry. Serial number classified." The way he said it was ritualistic, an oath spoken not for others but for himself. Zyric's voice rumbled from the shadows. A captain sealed inside a tomb.
Why?
Who locked you in that pod, Hale? Hale regarded him with a faint smirk, though no humor touched his eyes. Command. The single word landed heavily in the chamber. Varen frowned, confused. Command sought to preserve you. Surely, you were chosen for survival. But Hale only shook his head slowly. Command doesn't preserve weapons. They store them until they're needed again. The statement chilled even Kelthar, though he struggled to mask it with academic curiosity. He activated a hollow panel, displaying Hale's vital readings gathered since revival. Dense musculature, bone lattice strengthened with metallic threads, redundant organs humming with efficiency. Every scan was a revelation and a warning. He isn't merely human, Kelthar muttered, awe and dread mingling. He is engineered, altered beyond their natural form. Varen's hands hovered above the console, fascinated. Imagine what we might learn. The secrets of endurance, adaptation. Perhaps the very key to resisting entropy itself. Zyric stepped forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over the others. And imagine what might happen if such a being decides we are his enemy. You mistake a predator for a specimen. Hale remained still, listening, weighing each word as if cataloging his audience. Then, without warning, he extended his hand toward one of the chamber's hovering drones. The machine darted closer, releasing a probe beam. In a single motion, Hale snatched it midair and crushed its alloy frame between his fingers as if it were brittle glass. Sparks showered onto the deck. The aliens recoiled. Kelthar's lens snapped upward to capture the moment, while Varen whispered, "Impossible." Hale tossed the shattered remains aside, his voice calm. Weak surveillance. Wouldn't last a second in the field. He looked at them, not with hostility, but with the steady judgment of a man measuring potential allies or targets. Zyric's clawed hand slid fully onto his weapon. He tests us. No, Hale said evenly, eyes fixed on him. I test myself. After centuries in the dark, I needed to know if I was still ready. His tone carried neither apology nor threat, merely fact. The three aliens exchanged uneasy glances. Varen struggled to maintain composure, though his chest tightened with the dawning recognition that they had not revived a passive relic, but a force sharpened for war. Kelthar's ambition wavered under a tremor of fear, yet still he clung to the scholar's dream of discovery. Zyric, however, allowed no illusions. His instinct screamed that the human was not preserved for knowledge, but contained for survival of everything else. Hale broke the silence, his voice steady and low. Tell me, scholars, if the war has ended, then who won? Neither Varen nor Kelthar spoke. It was Zyric who answered. Not your kind. Hale's smirk returned, colder this time. Then the war isn't over. A soldier's war only ends when he does. And I am not finished. The chamber's silence stretched into something brittle, every breath taut with the weight of what they had awakened. For the first time, even Kelthar's enthusiasm faltered, his recording lens drifting downward. Varen pressed a trembling hand against the console, the enormity of their decision settling heavy in his chest. And Zyric, though he had long distrusted ancient relics and forbidden tombs, felt a deeper certainty grip him now. They had not uncovered history. They had unleashed it. The chamber, that once felt like a sanctuary of discovery, had grown tense, its silence broken only by the rhythmic hiss of cooling vents. Captain Marcus Hale sat rigid on the edge of the stasis pod, body coiled like a weapon awaiting its command. His gaze did not drift. It pinned each of them in turn, as though he were reading weaknesses hidden beneath their skin. Dr. Varen's instruments flickered with streams of impossible data. Every scan contradicted accepted biology. Dense bone, triple-layered musculature, veins laced with alloy filaments, organs that pulsed with redundant efficiency. He is no ordinary soldier, Varen murmured, voice cracking between awe and disbelief. Every cell in his body is engineered for survival. They turned him into something closer to a war machine than a man. Kelthar's lens whirred, eager to capture the revelation. His excitement had not dimmed, though now it carried a tremor of unease. A miracle of genetic craftsmanship. Imagine what his creators endured to justify such design. Entire wars must have demanded it. His blood carries secrets that could rewrite medical science. Hale's voice cut through their speculation, quiet but unyielding. Secrets forged in desperation. You speak of my body as if it were marvel, but it is a curse. Humanity built us to endure when endurance was no longer human. They sacrificed what we were to make sure we would never stop fighting. The words chilled the air more than the lingering frost. Kelther faltered, lens lowering, while Varen's hunger only sharpened. And yet you did survive, the scientist pressed. For centuries your systems endured while empires around you collapsed. You are proof of humanity's genius. Hale's eyes flicked toward him, and in that glance lay the echo of a battlefield drenched in blood. Proof of their fear. Do you know why my pod was sealed behind welded steel? Not to keep intruders out. To keep me in. Xyrek, who had stood silent in the corner with weapon drawn, finally spoke. I told you this was no survivor. This is a prison you've broken open. His voice carried no triumph, only grim certainty. Varen bristled, unwilling to surrender his discovery to suspicion. Containment or not, he is awake now. We cannot undo what is done. Our duty is to study, to learn, to preserve knowledge. And survive it, Xyrek snarled. Hale ignored their quarrel. His eyes grew distant, unfocused, as if memory clawed its way back from centuries of silence. I remember the last day, he said slowly, voice gravel-thick with restraint. The enemy pressed us to extinction. Cities burned, fleets shattered. We held ground only long enough to bury our dead. Then command called us back, one by one. We thought it was for survival, but it wasn't. It was to stop us from continuing the war after there was nothing left to defend. Kelther's mandibles clicked nervously. So your commanders feared their own soldiers? They feared what we had become, Hale replied, his tone flat, unflinching. Men who knew nothing but war. Men who could not accept peace, even if it meant extinction. We were not preserved as legacy. We were locked away because if loosed, we would fight forever. The weight of his words pressed heavily upon them. Varen stared at his instruments as if they might argue otherwise, but numbers did not lie. Every reading confirmed it. This man had been designed to be endless conflict incarnate. Kelther tried to cling to reason. But surely you are more than that. You have thought, memory, choice. You could. Hale cut him off with a glance sharp enough to silence him. Choice was stripped away when they carved me into a weapon. My purpose is singular. To fight. To endure. To destroy enemies without end. Even in stasis, I dreamed of war. The silence stretched until it ached. Xyrek's grip on his weapon tightened, claws scraping the metal casing. You hear it now, he growled at Varen and Kelther. Not history. Not miracle. He admits it. This man is a blade honed too sharp, one even his own kind feared to wield. Varen swallowed hard, torn between the intoxicating promise of discovery and the looming shadow of danger. If he is what he claims, then his existence proves humanity fell not to weakness, but to their own strength turned inward. Hale rose to his full height, the motion smooth and controlled, a predator measuring his limbs after a long hibernation. The frost cracked and fell from his armor in shards, clattering on the deck like teeth. He paced slowly, every step a reminder that he was neither frail nor disoriented. He was whole, and he was waiting. Tell me, he said, eyes narrowing on the aliens, what year is it? Kelther supplied the date with hesitant pride, as though still hoping the knowledge might tether this relic to reason. Hale processed the number in silence, his jaw tightening. His eyes darkened, yet no sorrow flickered there. Only confirmation of something long suspected. So long, he murmured. And yet, nothing has changed. The galaxy still breeds enemies. There will always be war. Varen stepped forward, desperation bleeding into his voice. There does not have to be. You could teach us. Help us understand what humanity endured. You could be more than a soldier. Hale's laughter was low and cold, without mirth. More? There is nothing more. A hammer does not become a brush. A soldier does not become a teacher. Kelther's recording lens clicked, almost involuntarily, capturing every word though fear now trembled in his posture. If your own people entombed you, then what hope do we have of controlling you? You don't, Hale answered simply. The bluntness stole the last remnants of pretense. Xyric raised his weapon fully now, sight fixed on the human's chest. Then he goes back into the coffin. Or we end him here. Varen threw himself between them, voice strained.
No.
To kill him would be to erase the last truth of an entire species. We cannot throw away such knowledge. Xyric's eyes narrowed, his body tense. Better erased than unleashed. Hale remained still, yet there was a subtle shift in his stance, the faint tightening of muscles, the way his eyes measured distances and weaknesses. He was a soldier preparing for the inevitable. The air itself felt thinner, charged with the certainty that violence was moments away. And in that brittle silence, the truth stood undeniable. They had not uncovered a relic to be studied. They had loosed a weapon designed never to stop fighting. The room felt smaller with Marcus Hale standing in its center, a presence too large for the narrow chamber. Frost still steamed from his armor, yet his movements were fluid, precise, as those centuries of slumber had been no more than a soldier's brief rest. His eyes, cold and exacting, swept across the three aliens again, and in that gaze they felt less like scientists and more like targets under review. Dr. Varen pressed closer to the console, frantic fingers racing over displays that no longer comforted him. The data was undeniable, strength multiplied beyond natural limits, reflexes honed to near-instant reaction, a mind wired for combat even in stillness. He is extraordinary, Varen muttered, though the word trembled now, weighed down by fear. Every part of him is purpose-built for survival. Xyric did not lower his weapon. His massive frame blocked the exit, stance braced like a fortress. Purpose-built for killing, not survival, he corrected. His voice rumbled low, the sound of a predator recognizing its equal. Kelther's recording lens still spun, but the historian's enthusiasm had withered into unease. If their commanders sealed him away, perhaps they knew he could not be controlled. Hale smiled faintly at the word, though it held no warmth. Controlled? You misunderstand. A weapon is not controlled. It is aimed. The three aliens exchanged glances, their conflict raw and visible. Varen's hunger for discovery warred against Xyric's demand for containment, while Kelther hovered between, shaken by truths too heavy for scholarship. Hale stood at the center of it, unflinching, as though their debate were irrelevant. Finally, Varen broke the silence. We did not awaken you to fight. The war you speak of ended long ago. Humanity is gone. There are no enemies left. Hale's smirk sharpened into something colder. No enemies? Then you are blind. The galaxy breeds them without end. Where there are borders, there are wars. Where there is breath, there is conflict. If humanity is gone, then I will fight in their place. Xyric's weapon rose higher, claws tightening on the grip. Not in this place. Not among us. For the first time, Hale moved. The shift was subtle, a single step forward, yet it carried the weight of an entire battlefield. Do you think you could stop me? Xyric's finger curled against the trigger, but Varen threw up a trembling hand.
Wait.
If we can learn from him, understand his creation, perhaps we can prevent such wars in the future. Hale's laughter cut him off, low, humorless, steeped in irony. Prevent war? That is the illusion of the weak. War is not prevented. It is prepared for. And I am the preparation made flesh. The tension snapped. Hale moved with a suddenness that defied sight, crossing the distance to a nearby drone in less than a heartbeat. He ripped it from its docking cradle and hurled it against the wall, the impact shattering metal like brittle bone. The sound echoed through the chamber, a reminder of how easily he could shatter them too. Kelther stumbled backward, lens rattling. Impossible, he gasped. Even augmented reflexes, no creature should. But Varen knew the truth. He isn't a creature, he whispered, horror blooming where awe had once lived.
He is a design.
A weapon sculpted to endure eternity. Hale turned toward them, unbothered by their fear. You awoke me. You broke the seal. That means only one thing. The war continues. Xyrek steadied his weapon, voice a growl. Then it ends with you. The soldier's gaze fixed on him, and for a moment the room was frozen in the balance. Discipline against discipline. Predator against predator. Then Hale stepped back, his expression shifting to something almost serene. You would not be the first to try. And you would not be the last to fail. Varen's desperation burst through restraint. Please listen. If you leave this ship, if you unleash yourself upon the galaxy, you will not be preserving humanity. You will be erasing what little peace remains. Hale regarded him with a soldier's cold pragmatism. Peace is only the silence between battles. You want to preserve me as specimen. He nodded toward Xyrek, wants to kill me as threat. But neither of you understands. I was not sealed away to be studied. I was not meant to be destroyed. I was meant to be forgotten. The finality of his words crushed the air from the chamber. Kelther's lens stilled, as though even the machine recognized the gravity of silence. Varen's hands trembled at the console, data meaningless now in the face of the man standing before them. And Xyrek, though his weapon remained steady, felt the hollow certainty that firing it would not end what they had begun. Hale stepped toward the sealed hatch, every motion measured, unstoppable. You can try to contain me again, or you can step aside. But understand this. Whatever galaxy I wake to, I will find its wars. And I will fight them, because that is all I am. He paused at the threshold, turning his scarred face back to them. His voice dropped into something quieter, almost reverent, as though speaking to ghosts none of them could see. My commanders feared I would never stop. They were right. With that, he vanished into the dark corridors of the derelict ship, footsteps fading into echoes that seemed to stretch beyond steel and stone, carrying into the galaxy itself. The three aliens stood in silence, each bound by their own truth, Varen broken by the weight of discovery, Kelther shaken by the collapse of history into nightmare, Xyrek grimly vindicated, but no less burdened. They had not found a relic. They had released a storm, and somewhere beyond the asteroid's husk, the universe waited, unaware that a soldier who had outlived his people now walked again, carrying a war that had never truly ended.